coming out here. I know it's pretty cold, not as cold as yesterday, but still pretty cold. I am very excited to have our speaker talk to you about all his amazing animation because I get to work next to him and see how crazy talented he is all the time. But he gave this talk recently at CalArts, so I wanted him to also give this talk to us here, and I'm very glad that he will do that. We will do a Q&A at the end, so you can save your questions for then. Do you like taking questions as things go on, or you prefer the end?
I think I'm good. If
it's during. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
cool.
I don't know why I didn't answer that normally.
Don't worry, it's gonna be good. Okay. Without further ado, we'll get going. Thank you, Adam.
Okay. Hi, I'm Adam. I am a 2D animator at Make.
Woo!
Woo! Yay, we love 2D. And I graduated from CalArts not too long ago, but since graduating, I've only been working as a 2D animator, which really surprises me because I think while I was there, I was under the impression that in the US, all animation work is in pre-production. But I worked on an independent game after graduating, and then I got hired at Make. So, yeah. With like my experience, or I guess my journey with learning animation and using software, I kind of started with Flipnote on the DSi, but as I was like getting more serious into drawing, I just like the first thing I used was Photoshop Elements, which came with a bamboo font. It wasn't very good. And then I used a version of Flash, and then I never used it again. And then when I attended CalArts, they made their students use TVPaint, which is really not common in the industry at all, but I think it's becoming more normal. And I fell in love with it. It made animation super intuitive. Like, I love the way the timeline acts. I mean, maybe it's just because my only experience with animation software before was with Flash, and they have no previews of your drawings. They're just little rectangles, and that kind of threw me off. But TVPaint had little icons, and that was like the one thing that made me think, oh, maybe I can do this. And then after I got hired at Make, we started being more serious about introducing Harmony into our pipeline. So that's when I started using Harmony, and then I fell in love with Harmony. I'll talk a bit about how I got into it, or maybe why I even animate at all in my free time and outside of work. But like growing up, I kind of always liked any animated thing. But when I thought about it really hard, I realized that something I kept coming back to was video games. And as a kid and a teenage, and through my teen years, like I would always come back to these sprite sheets, like the one I have here. Oh, whoops. And I thought these were the coolest things ever, like stuff made for like the SNES and the Game Boy. Like I love seeing sprite works in like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and like Metal Slug. I thought they were so cool, and I would always come back to those as like a thing I wanted to maybe animate one day. But otherwise, currently my biggest motivation for animating is just I really like drawing my own characters. And I think it's okay if someone's motivation for art is that simple. I think everyone should love their OCs. I think it's beautiful. I do want to start with a bit of a disclaimer. Even though I'm really excited to talk about Harmony and like how it's helped me with my workflow, I've only done frame by frame traditional animation. So I don't have a lot of experience yet with like rigged and puppet animation. Like I would see stuff like Stugo and like Centaur World, My Little Pony, all these cartoons, and I'm like, how did they make that? I don't know, but I don't really want to pay for Harmony Premium right now, so I'm sticking with the traditional frame by frame. So like with the styles I've worked with, anyways, even though I don't have a lot of experience with puppet animation, it's like I've done full traditional 2D stuff. I've done like an imitation a lot for work, for especially for a show called Sunny Side Down, who Natalia is directing. And I mean, also the a Cheez It ad I worked on was also kind of like that.
Yeah, we kind of do a faux rig look like fairly often, where it's like you still plus it with
And then there's limited animation, which I feel like I've heard some professors describe it as something that's not in ones and twos, but to me, it's still a lot of work. So here's some stuff I worked on. Uh, I worked on 2 films. Well, I worked on 3 films, but I only have 2 listed here while I was at CalArts. This film was called Boys' Night in Sidera Institute, and for this one, I really wanted to focus on character animation. So the characters were just in one single color, but the backgrounds were detailed because I wanted it to be like classic 2D animation where a lot of the a lot of the love is put into like visual gags and stuff. And with the kind of visual style I was going for, I was like, if I'm going to make a film that doesn't have a lot of color and it's just a lot of drawings, it'd be cool if it looked something like a blueprint, which is why it's mostly white and blue. And then for like any bits of texture and color, I'm like, oh, I want this to look like a risograph. And then I made this film called Horn Cooked Gola, and it was my first time working on something with dialogue and recording actors and like working in full color. I loved working on this film. It was a story that I had even years before I made it, but I'm glad I made it. And I'm currently working on another film, but I don't know how much I should talk about it.
Wait, where can we see Horse with Gold?
It's on YouTube, and I will play a clip from it at the end because I wanted to give an example for like a storyboarding where you storyboarding something in such a way where you can animate less if you're like on a budget or you need to be super economical. Uh, and then I also worked on my friend's films, and maybe this is only interesting to me because at CalArts most people make their own films. But when I decided to help my friends and become a dedicated animator, I started having to work with someone else's design and someone else's story and someone else's animation direction. So it's just really different from working on your own film, and it was awesome. Um, yeah, what I just said. And then now I work at Make. I work on their client stuff. Like these are all shots I worked on. I animated Chris Pratt's hair. Um, and I worked on this. Like some of my coworkers, actually, yeah, you guys are all here. Like you all worked on this with me too. This music video. Um, and then in between client stuff, we work on like internals and original stuff. And like, I mean, I guess it's pretty clear at this point that something you really have to do as an animator is to work with someone else's design. Except for this bottom left one, I designed everything myself. Um, and I don't know, there's just a lot of things that I wish I kind of like considered more as an animator, like when I decided to take it more seriously. Because I didn't work with other people's designs a lot while I was in school, but working on other friends' films really got me started on that. Anyways, so in all of these projects, I've learned some things. It's completely normal to reuse drawings and strokes. And actually, it's kind of better if you can, especially when you have to pass your work onto a cleanup artist. I mean, I'm kind of biased too, where I love a really fully drawn in between, like animation where every frame is a unique drawing. But I've seen a few times where some animators would get noted during cleanup where they're like, we need to remove some of these frames because they're too wobbly, which is kind of sad. But that's just how it is when with commercial projects where things have to be super tight and super on model. Um, and also, as I've worked on my own films, I've also come to realize that every aspect of it kind of builds into helping you become a better animator too. Like, I really was thinking I should specialize in something for a while, but I've come to realize that like if I decide to become a more serious board artist or cinematographer, it would make me a better animator. If I were to take character design model stuff more seriously, it would make me be a better animator too. So, so yeah, like all of, which is to say, I think a film is a really great way to get yourself to like just be a better animator. So it took me a while to get here, but let's talk about software. Um, I don't know if I should give a bit of a disclaimer, but I was initially hoping to demo these live, but then I came to realize that I was having some issues with like getting software to work and like bringing all my shortcuts here. And now I'm seeing that I'm on a podium, so maybe it's better that I didn't bring a tablet. So if I sound a bit sick in some of these recordings, it's because my apartment's kind of freezing. So sorry, back to software. So here are some software things that have helped me work faster and more efficiently, and I would hope that more people know about it. Um, I know that, I mean, in hindsight, they're pretty basic, but I've come to realize that you don't need a lot of fancy tools to animate, but these can really help, especially when I'm required to be really tight with my drawings. So, like, the first one is labeling your drawings and flipping between specific drawings. The second one is shift and trace. And then the third one is copying, pasting, and reusing your drawings. The fourth one is more about transforming your drawings in many ways to get like the effect you need for whatever you're working on. And then um, the point five about zooming, rotating, and flipping your canvas is more about seeing your drawings in like at like different angles. And if you have to draw things way more up close, you should really be rotating. Actually, wait, maybe I should talk about this later. Okay. Um, Coloring tools. TVPaint and Toon Boom has really great coloring tools and shortcuts, which I don't think I should dwell on for too long. So to start flipping and labeling your drawings. So I thought about it really hard and I was like, what do you need for animation? You just need to be able to draw something on something. You need to be able to flip between these drawings. Um, Even better is if you can flip between specific drawings. And actually, they've been doing this on paper for years now. Um, and I want to mention flipping between your drawings first because it's really all you need. If you flip between your drawings really aggressively, you can feel how these drawings flow into each other. And then also, like it's useful throughout the whole process of like rough, tie down, and cleanup. Where if you flip your drawings really aggressively, you can notice any model inconsistencies or volume changes. Um, I had to work with Photoshop for a bit, and I know a lot of animators who work with Photoshop too. And I know that they make it work because they can flip between the start and end of their workspace. So that's really all you need to animate stuff. But TVPaint and Harmony has more robust tools to let you do this. So Harmony lets you label your stuff as a key or an in-between, and then has a mode you can turn on where you'll only flip between these label drawings. And on TVPaint, you can just bookmark a part of your timeline. So I have a demo here.
On Harmony, to set keyframes and jump between them, it's with these buttons here. I brought them all together just to make it easier to see. But if you hit this mark as key drawing, it will put a red mark on your drawing. And it doesn't do anything unless you have this enabled, which is a mode for flipping, where with this one that says show key drawings when flipping, it'll only jump between drawings that you have labeled as a key. Harmony by default considers everything an in-between, so if you hit this in-between mark button, it just removes the marks altogether. I have shortcuts set for marking a drawing as a key so I can do it pretty aggressively. And then I also have a shortcut for marking something as an in-between so it removes the marks. It also has a function to only show certain marked drawings in your onion skin. So with this one here, it'll only show you drawings that you've marked as a key in your onion skin.
Mhm. So it's like, I mean, on some projects or some assignments, I would try to have like one really on model key drawing. So in that case, I would just use that one drawing, mark it as a key, and then always look back at how the model looks on that one. Like I do it mainly for model checks and volume checks. I I actually had an extended recording of the TVPaint one where I was like, "Oh, I sometimes do it for model checks," but then I got out because I thought it was boring. But I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's similar to I don't know if you've ever just a model sheet drawing, like a translucent one in the background while you're working. It's like that. Like that's how I'm treating it sometimes. Okay. And then there's a shift and trace. So it's like, well, have you ever thought? I mean, you have these three drawings. Have you ever thought, oh, I wish I could lay this one specific drawing on top of my current drawing right now to be way more precise with volume and model checks? Um, and in this scenario, I have them all on paper. And for this animation, I'm like, a character is jumping from screen left to screen right, and they're pointing their arm down like this. So in all three of these frames, their head, their body, and their arms are at different places of the screen. And so maybe during roughs, you would really want to eyeball it to be quick, but during tie downs, it'd be useful to like here during tie downs, it'd be really useful to bring these drawings closer together so you can really notice these changes. So like on this first example, I'm like, oh, I want to check. I'm going to anchor these drawings to their head and see how the shape of their head is changing. Uh-oh, I see that the shape of the body is changing and the shape of the head is changing too. And then I'm like, okay, I want to check for, oops, I want to check for the character's hand just to maybe check for the thickness of their wrist, or maybe just like check for any design inconsistencies. It's hard for me to make out what what to think of this, but that's just an example where it's a really great idea to just put your drawings on top of another drawing, rotate it however you need to, just so you can see how these drawings are different from each other. And TVPaint and Harmony has features that let you do that, and they call it the shift and trace. On TVPaint, it's all on the light table, but on Harmony, it's like this shift. It's like this icon with the pegs. You call these pegs? They're like pretend that there's a sheet of paper here, and there are these punched holes and a peg in the middle. Like that's what it is. So I have a video demoing this as well. I do that
So in
one a lot where I'm
Harmony,
like
it
spinning
is
the
like a
cursor.
tool and a mode that you can turn on. And I felt that this scene would be a pretty good one to use it on just because a character is animated on a static background, and so that means their head, their feet, I mean, their everything is kind of moving to different parts of the screen. So with the shift and trace tool, I can kind of bring these drawings closer together. I have it set so it's still only showing me key drawings, which I have labeled here. With the shift and trace tool on, if I hit control and left click, it'll let me move these onion skins. I can scale it up, scale it down, rotate it. And what's different about Harmony's shift and trace tool is that actually it keeps their drawings in place even as you're flipping through it. So, I mean, I can turn the onion skin off here. So I could also just flip through my drawings just like this and keep an eye out for any jarring model or size changes. And if there are any, I can make fixes accordingly.
Yes.
I feel like I would so forget and be like, oh my god.
Maybe I should have demoed that part, but yeah, they have these buttons next to it where you can put everything back in place, or you can just turn it off. So I think this is like one of the bigger ones where it's like we're using digital software. We can copy and paste things infinitely and not have to redraw stuff all the time. Like if you can't do that with a pencil. So I want to talk about like these tools you can use in Harmony and TVPaint that let you do that. But Harmony is a lot better at it. So on Harmony, it's mainly just the select tool and the cutter tool. Well, actually, the video actually talks about this whole thing, so I'll just play it too.
So for copying and pasting drawings in Harmony, Harmony is a lot better at doing this. Similar to Storyboard Pro, when you make a selection, it tries to select a whole stroke. And when you copy and paste something, it stays on the same drawing and on the same layer. What's especially nice is that after you've pasted something, it has the transformation controls ready for you to use. Now, if I want to be more specific about my selection, because otherwise I'd only be selecting a whole stroke, is I can switch to the cutter tool here, and I can make a smaller selection and move it around like this. This also works with the copy and paste function. So let's say I'm like, I think this part of the character is way too delicate for me to redraw an eyeball as I'm cleaning up or tying it down. So I would just copy this and paste it and reuse it on multiple frames. Yeah, just an example.
I didn't even put it in
Also,
place.
something that's really nice about Harmony's transform controls is that when you select something, and there's these transformation controls here, it rotates with your workspace as you're rotating it. So you can get really specific with how you skew stuff around. I've used this a lot in both my rough and my cleanup process.
Yeah, so really the places where you can like copy and paste your animation can be really vast. Like I've used it on pretty much like whole characters. But I have this shot from Sunny Side Down that I felt that kind of showcases it pretty well. I'm gonna have to play this back over and over again because I can't set it to loop. But so she comes through the door, and maybe you can tell, but her head is just the same drawing for several frames. And something I did with her hair was I would like select each part of her hair and like nudge it around in a specific way just to like give that sense of maybe wind blowing in her hair when she enters the scene. And then another one I did was on this character who turns his head. He has these curves, which is part of the design, and I'm making him turn his head. I just reused the same drawings too as he was turning his head. Let's see. I'll just. And then the one more thing is this leaf that this character is eating is also just one drawing that I manually nudged around frame by frame. It's just one drawing, and I think it looks pretty good. Not his mouth was not just one drawing though. I guess I felt that I should go crazy with his mouth. Okay, enough. And this is kind of a continuation of what I just showed, where you want to nudge parts of your drawings to really give it more life. And there are more like specific transformation controls where you can shift stuff in perspective in these softwares, or you can even warp stuff too. But really the one I mostly use are really basic skewing and scaling and transforming stuff. I have more examples here. So
I felt that this shot was another good example of letting yourself reuse drawings like crazy. So in this shot, everything has already been cleaned and colored actually. The character animation is done, but later on we realized that she is supposed to have goo all over her. So
I don't know how I said that without laughing.
For a shot prior to this one, and the design wasn't too different, so I just copied it over. and I tracked the rotation on her literally by copying and pasting the same drawings. And what I did to sell the illusion of her, of this goo rotating with her head, is just with really basic transformation controls like this. And I did it frame by frame. This shot is also a good opportunity to repeat my point about knowing where to anchor your drawings or anchor your transformations, because this character does tilt her head down later. So to keep stuff as consistent as possible, I noticed that the shape of her nose would make a great anchor point for her as she tilts her head down. So what I did was, well, I traced the nose, and anytime she tilts her head a little, and I'm copying and pasting it, I would move this anchor point to the edge of her nose, and then I would just rotate it following the outline of her face. Yeah.
So the next thing that I think is pretty important is to like flip your drawings. Flip, like mirror it horizontally, not like jumping between specific frames. And then also allowing yourself to really zoom into your workspace and rotating it around. Um, this is more about giving yourself more control. Um, like instead of rotating your body and like trying to do curves like this or whatever, trying to gesture it, like you should be rotating your workspace instead because it's just friendlier to your wrist and your body. And I have this example here that like when I first started working and I was kind of afraid. I was asked to record footage of me animating and I was kind of afraid that this would look kind of crazy, but it's a lot slower than I expected, so I'm kind of glad. And then here's just an example of flipping your drawing horizontally. And with the way TV Paint and Harmony works, you can just flip your workspace, so it doesn't take any processing power at all. Like you can really be aggressive with mirroring your own drawing and seeing like whether or not it's lopsided in one way or like straight up. Like if you see, I mean, actually, I've heard some artists when they flip their drawings, they don't see a new drawing, which is I don't know. But when I flip a drawing, I really notice any small mistakes that might be in there. Like mostly though, like things being off balance and designs just being a little wrong. Now I'll get into coloring tools. TV Paint and Harmony has really great ones. Um, TV Paint has something called the CTG layer where you can like draw in little worms on your drawing, and yeah, you choose colors and you put worms on your drawings, and then it has like an algorithm where it tries to detect any borders that you might have in the drawing. And actually, what's really cool about the CTG layer is you can set multiple sources. But wait, I actually talk about this in the video too, so maybe I'll just play that. It's not a Yeah, it's not a subscription. No, I got it on at a student price, and I'm so glad that I did because I know that it can be expensive. But I'm glad I started with TV Paint, and well, in my opinion, Harmony is a lot better for drawing, but TV Paint kind of has everything you need to. You can even storyboard stuff in TV Paint, but I'm not showing that here. But yeah, you can storyboard stuff in TV Paint. Like unlike Harmony, one TV Paint file can like contain an infinite amount of shots. It's crazy.
So Harmony has a feature where you can automatically matte fill your whole animation too.
Oh yeah, there's something wrong with Harmony captures on OBS where pop-up windows don't appear. So I'm going to be talking about something and it's not there at all.
It is a little bit rough and it is automated, but if you want to quickly test your character against a background or a comp, then I think it's good enough. So you pick your color first, hit drawing, generate automat, and there are these perimeters, and the radius will be huge, just so it can really fill in these drawings without thinking too much. Hit OK,
But look,
and it's
wow.
done. Well, there are some frames you might have to fix. And now you can place this character on a background or a comp. So,
And then this one is about Harmony's like art color layer, where each drawing technically has 4 layers, which is amazing. Well, I talk about it in the video too, so let's just get to it too.
so with coloring things on Harmony, it can get really interesting. One of my favorite things about Harmony is that every drawing technically has 4 layers that you can work with, and they all overlap with each other. Since there is a line layer and a color layer on every drawing here, something you can tell Harmony to do is to create invisible borders underneath the line work. So you can.
Also, I want to mention,
So with color,
oh my god, when you hit the create color art button, it works with PNGs too. So if you bring in line work from like maybe Photoshop or something, it works also, which is
coloring
cool.
things on Harmony, it can get really interesting. Invisible borders underneath the line work. So you can do that with just this button right here, which is called the Create Color Art from Line Art. So if I were to stay on the color layer and I hit this button, I can see all of the little invisible borders it's drawing on the line work, or underneath the line work, I should say. I thought that this would be a great file to show it too because there is something really strange going on with it. Like for some reason, the line work on this, on the first few frames here, are a really huge shape. So the color art layer can actually get pretty confused about how to interpret this, but it does become normal a bit later. And the color art also interprets it better when it's like not insanely huge shapes like this. So you can tell it to just do that for the whole thing. You can make invisible borders underneath all your line work and then just fill your drawings from there. So I'll just start here. I'm just being really loose. So much like drawing and animating on any softwares, even after cleanup, you might have little gaps, like this helmet here. I can stay on the bucket tool and hold down C, which activates close gap, and I can just draw a straight line and it just closes the gap for me. And I can do this really fast. What it does is it draws invisible strokes. That's a straight line between 2 points. So on this one, I just quickly made up some invisible strokes here. And that's functionally how it closes gaps. Really fast. I think it's great because I don't even have to leave the bucket. I just close the gap there. But in a situation where something really strange is going on and the gaps I want to close need to be way more specific, like I can't just draw a straight line and expect this to fill properly. So I can use the stroke tool instead, which lets me draw invisible strokes freely. So I can just draw an invisible stroke underneath this. and I colored it like there was nothing wrong with it. It's pretty cool. And because Harmony functionally has 4 layers, 2 of them you do have to turn on in preferences. If I were to retime a drawing or animation, I mean, all of its passes would follow. Like the color frames will be held for even longer too. And if I have to render stuff in 2 separate passes, like the line maybe and a pass for the color, I don't even have to have a separate timeline layer. All I have to do is turn off the line layer, and now the line is gone, and I can render that. Or I can do it the other way around where the color is gone and I can render that.
That's my favorite Harmony feature. Wait, I didn't even show the CTG layer. Okay. I have a recording of it, and it is in my drive. But like halfway through it, I sped it up because I thought it was really boring too. But I'll show it. I think I should show it just because it's kind of the main way of coloring on TVPaint. If anyone's interested in using TVPaint. Anyways, the last thing is to use shortcuts, which is obvious, I guess. But with like wanting to be more aggressive about selecting and moving stuff around, like we should have a shortcut for like your select and lasso tool and like your transformations, and then having shortcuts set for like flipping your canvas and rotating your workspace. Anyways, I have thoughts about working in a team or production. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Like working on a production is pretty different from working on your own thing. Like the needs are pretty different, and you can you kind of have to answer to someone and pitch ideas to them and check in with them, and then they'll give you notes or whatever. So like the first thing for animators is to really like check in with your director or supervisor as soon as you can. And if you have any ideas that kind of go off the boards or the script or whatever, you can like pitch it with a drawing or like even like gesturing stuff to them. Um, like these are some examples of some thumbnail drawings I've done for myself where I plan an animation before I go for it. Um, for this one shot in my friend's film, I was like, I think it'd be funny if he's tried to like, if he was struggling to hold on before slipping down like this. But ultimately, he said, I don't think we can do that because there's not enough time. And he was right. So this is what the animation looks like. Usually, well, not usually, but on some productions or projects, there are dedicated cleanup artists that you have to send your animation to. And your animation has to be really tied down because um, you want to have as little questions as possible. I mean, you want to give them as little questions as possible as they're working on your drawing, because with rough drawings especially, there can be a lot of questions about which lines overlap with which lines, or like, is this tangent intentional, stuff like that. And like, you might have noticed that with a lot more classic 2D stuff, they take their roughs into like really clean, like it's like so clean. And yeah, like this is just to say like you have to really clean up your animation even if you're working in roughs. I put my own drawing in as an example here, but this drawing on the left is not ready for cleanup. Um, the only case where it's really fine for animation to be rough and passed on to clean in production is if you're cleaning up the animation yourself, which actually kind of happens often at our job.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're absolutely this all the time. I know that. But it's like it's because you're cleaning it up, so it's fine.
Yeah. Because I do. Yeah, because if you do your own things, then you get to decide, or if you're familiar with the character model, you can make your fixes while you're doing your things. But on a project like Klaus here, it's like gonna be really hard for someone to do cleanup on a drawing like this, especially with like how thin they need their lines to be. yeah. So I have thoughts about maybe passing stuff on to like someone to do backgrounds and character work with. But I also want to reiterate that working on a film is kind of like an amazing opportunity to do a bit of everything. And actually, a film is kind of like the perfect opportunity to go crazy with like all of your design work in it too. Anyways, like something that's nice for you to, if you're working with an animator, something that's at least nice for them to have is a turnaround. I have worked on a project that didn't have turnarounds before, and it was bad. Um, like I didn't know what was supposed to be behind the character, and then they asked me to do cleanup on it. So like, that was bad. And then like a color script would be nice too, so that an animator can just color pick it if they need to color it. And then with backgrounds, like if someone has to match the style you're working with in your backgrounds, you can just like have like one key background that they can always come back to. So this is just an example I have. This was for House of the Outlands. I sent my lead this rough drawing, and then he sent me back these notes. Um, he made a lot of really interesting decisions here that I didn't do, like having distant stuff be in complete shadow, changing the design of this wooden spoon to this, and the whisk too. And then I took it to color, and then this was something that a partner studio just used as reference for for other shots of the kitchen. I also do have more thoughts about cheating stuff in 2D while you're making your own film or whatever. Um, I feel like there's an inverse relationship between how detailed the background really needs to be with like how wide your shot is and how close it is. Like the more close your shot is to your character, I feel like the background can really take a back seat. So if you want to cheat, or if you want to like be more economical about that, like just be way more thoughtful about how your wides look with establishing a layout. Like, these are like more medium-ish. These are like wider ones. And then character design and model stuff that's useful to provide to an animator. Well, character designers are practically key animators, like in a lot of 2D productions. Like a character designer would be tasked to do like turnarounds and something called a special pose, which is effectively a keyframe that literally an animator will use in their animation. And they do this a lot in TV animation, even now. So if you'd like to help an animator be really on model, you can't just straight up give them a keyframe for the shot, and then they can follow it and use it as reference. Yeah, here's some turnarounds. Like a 5-point minimum would be nice, but I feel like 3/4 already give a lot of information. So if you wanted to do a 3/4 front and a 3/4 back, that's fine too. And then if your project has any like really important stylistic choices you want to make that you want to be consistent with, then a sheet like this is amazing for an animator. This is also for having the outlines where stuff has to be really stylish and angular, and like the perspective doesn't always make sense. So like there are these questions, these like answer questions with like, wait, if a knee is this sharp at this angle, how would I draw it facing forwards? And so Josh was like, well, don't make it flat up here. At least have it at an angle. And then like no round openings, like on sleeves and pants, stuff like that. And then there's also this awesome shoe sheet that he did. Just this is really specific, but giving this to an animator is really helpful. And back to just like special poses, layouts, or keys. They're really just keyframes. And as you work on your film, like any approved final animation drawing you have, you can add it to a library and call it like a special pose sheet. Okay. And then my last thought is on storyboarding stuff. it's something I've had to be really mindful, especially now that I've had to do a lot of animation, where some things I'm like, this was a lot of work, but I feel like you could have communicated the same thing with shots that require less drawing. So like, try to reduce the amount of full body shots you have, but don't worry if you've already done that in your film. Um, and then like something that also really helps is to cut a character's foot off the screen. Um, and then if there's like lip sync and dialogue, I know typically in animation reels, to really showcase like an animator's ability to draw someone else's design and showcase their sensibilities for acting and stuff, like these reel pieces are usually one long shot of a character just talking and acting, which is awesome. But um, when you put something like that in a film, it can really feel a bit unnatural, especially in dialogue. And something like that is a moment for you to cut away from a character to show maybe how people in the room are reacting to it, or you can show another story element. I have an example here where I'm like, this scene, this character needs to walk in. It's a full body scene, and they walk into a room, they see something on the counter, they pick it up, and then they leave. Um, as an animator, I have to kind of be mindful of a lot of things here, like weight shifting, foot placement, and then since like this is likely going to be like a maybe at least a 6 second shot or something, it's going to be a lot of drawings to want to keep consistent, which is really difficult. Um, I really don't have an issue with the existence of full body shots. I mean, I'm a huge fan of The Illusionist. I don't know if anyone has seen it. The Sylvain Chomet film. And yeah, it's really good. But it's all full body and it's all characters miming and stuff. That stuff is like a lot of work. It's like the most work you can give an animator. Like making a character walk and talk in full body. So I'm like, this story moment could be broken up into more shots that require less characters to be drawn. I know technically this adds more shots, but really the amount of detail you want to give the backgrounds is up to you. So yeah, I've cut up their feet. I focus more on like how they're reacting to seeing this. I don't know what this object is. I just drew it on the thing on the table, and then they take it out. Like it's just a lot less drawing, even though it's more shots. Just more examples here, especially stuff about cutting off the feet. It's like a really nice way to like also give yourself an opportunity to go crazy with um, camera moves and I don't know the comping stuff. If a character isn't completely like in full body, you really don't have to worry about the sense of space like half the time. I say. So, yeah, they do this a lot in TV animation where Nobita is just running towards the camera, and his feet are just not there. Yeah, there's Mob Psycho here too. In this example, though, like there's a shot where the background is animated instead. It's still easier than having to animate a character on a static background and then moving the camera with the character. So they also made a really smart decision there. Well, this is just something I animated. I only put it there because I did put a shot where I cut the character's foot off and did a camera turn and run. Oh yeah. So what I was saying about reaction shots and cutting away from the character, um, I hope it's okay that the example I'm pulling up is my film because it was kind of like the first example I could think of. And when I watched this scene again, it kind of made me laugh, like realizing how much I was trying to cut down animation on purpose. Because this is like really extreme, but yeah.
What happened? And how'd the flames get so damn big?
The hot station got out of control. The burners were on too high, and so the flames just kept getting bigger. But he was just standing there, and it looked like he was reaching for it.
What?
It was close, but he didn't get burned. I checked.
Good. Well, get back to work. Gola, get some water and take 5. So you did get burnt.
No, this is my other hand. I think this happened earlier today. At home?
Never mind that, you need to go home.
Yeah, this is a really extreme example, but I was cutting away from a character talking a lot. Especially like the part where, well, his name is actually Broccoli. This character's name is Broccoli, and he's like, oh, the fires were too hot. The flames just kept burning bigger. I don't think he burnt himself. Like, that's a lot of acting and talking to animate, but I just, I thought the screen went to sleep. I just cut away from it because I knew that there were other story elements I could focus on in the scene. And, I mean, maybe I should give myself some credit too, because the intention of the scene was also for you to really be with the character when he realizes that he did burn himself. So yeah, just a really extreme example of cutting away from a character to do less animation. The same thing happened at Towers. Like I accidentally made him hit his head, and then.
Adam's got a 5-minute warning.
Okay, well I'm getting close. Okay, oh perfect. Okay, but yeah. Anyways, these were just some examples about like production stuff and like stuff to be mindful of and like stuff to give an animator, typically in the production. And yeah, again, like with my examples, I am adding more shots, but it really is still less work overall. Like doing maybe one wide background is always less work than doing a 6-second shot of a character, a 6-second full body shot of a character walking and talking. Anyways, I just wanted to share a bit about a film I'm working on now. It's called. I wish I had more to share, but I don't know about where it is, about sharing too much about it with where it is now. It's called The Sun Is Not For Us, and these are some thumbnails I drew for it. And the film is going to look like this, and it's going to look like this. It's going to look like this. It's going to be in black and white, and it's a film about these characters who always want to be in shadow. But why don't they like the sun? That's so strange. Yeah, these are their names. The Moon, Pontiana, which is like a Southeast Asian angry vampire lady, and Chupi the Chupacabra. Thanks. That's it.
Put it on nice and somewhere, but don't play it right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Like that went on for a while. I hope there was some useful things or some reminders in that maybe.
Yes. If you have questions, you're using it. I trust that and call people.
Yep.
Can you import drawings or like frames into TVPaint to color them?
Yeah. And maybe I should just pull up that CTG layer thing.
No.
Okay. Any other questions? But yes, you can import stuff.
I was going to ask, aside from staying on the model, what are some other like big challenges of working with other people's character sheets?
That's really just the main thing, actually. Like
All the time, I'm like,
I know. I'm sorry. Like
the character looks off, and her nose is like 2 millimeters long, and you have like.
Yeah, it's like dependent on the style of the show, but like for something like Sunny Side Down, a character has to be really consistent. But on something like House of the Outland, there's a lot more room to like squish a character model. Yeah.
With like the harmony stuff, are there like tutorials on the harmony YouTube or something about the things you're talking about, or is that something you just like learn from like messing with?
I learned. Well, the coloring stuff actually I learned from helping my friend on his film. That was like my first time using it. But I did eventually find a video that talked about it specifically. Maybe you might have heard of this YouTuber called The Bird Brain. Like, her videos are amazing. Like, literally everything you need is there. But I just wanted to highlight these features specifically because they're really helpful for drawing in animation.
how particular do you get about like, putting hotkeys close to each other and like how little you move your left hand to like access things?
Oh, I get really particular. Like, I always keep things kind of next to each other where I'm like, this is the opposite of this. So this is the left and this is the right for these two opposite functions. Like, I put the brush and eraser right next to each other, even though B and E are like the standard, but I just put it in B and N for brush and eraser.
Does it take you a long time to memorize like, oh, where this particular warp key is now? Or...
No. No, it's pretty easy. Yeah.
Which one is your favorite shortcut?
What?
Which one is your favorite shortcut in TVPaint and TV?
On TVPaint, my favorite shortcut is I don't know if it counts as a shortcut, but I love rotating the workspace. Which is that's kind of dumb. Right? I don't know. I love rotating the workspace. But on Toon Boom, I'd say my favorite one actually is the select tool. I love selecting stuff. I'd be selecting stuff for real though.
All right, I think that's it, folks. Thank you.